Welcome to another edition of the Defo Show with Lubvie right here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Super Bowl 56 is in the books. Today we talk about the game itself as the Rams are now champions once again for the first time since the early 2000s. We also talk with John Congemi as we go Dateline Dolphins. Thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. He will, as a guy who played professional football, played college football, worked with ESPN covering football of all kinds for over 20 years. He comes on with us each and every Monday to talk about the Dolphins, what's going on with the Dolphins and the NFL. So we talk a lot about the Super Bowl and what we can expect from the Dolphins this offseason and next year with the one and only John Congemi right here on the Defo Show with Lubvie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie Lubitz. We welcome in. Brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. Mile marker 104 in Key Largo. The great one himself, Mr. John Congemi, who played football at an excellent level at a variety of different platforms, including the Canadian Football League as a pro. And, of course, University of Pittsburgh, St. Thomas Aquinas High School, which probably could compete. Maybe they might be a bottom-level SEC team, no, on any given year. John, how are you, my friend?
In a good year, yes.
Good to have you on the program there. Might need to juice the microphone there just a little bit. John Congemi with us here on Ion Channel. All right, John, I'll let you have the stage here. I mean, your thoughts. We were only right about one thing on a Super Bowl that McVay would call the first time out, and I managed to screw that up by parlaying that to the under on the anthem, which I thought if you're going to play the game, go for the bizarre, because everybody seemed to want Cincinnati to win. Everybody thought the Rams were going to win. The 4 points turned out to be a huge difference because of the missed extra point. And that would have been wild, too, if the entire universe pushed on the ball game. But what did you think about the way the game was contested, and what were some of the key ingredients in that one for you?
Well, I thought it was a great game, number one, because of the quarterback play early in the game. Coming down to a last drive scenario, it seemed like every game in the playoffs and including the Super Bowl, it was going to be a 3-point game. So for a fan, you couldn't ask for a better outcome to a football game. For me, I felt like the Rams were a better team, but the Bengals were going to find a way to win. It just felt like that was the type of game you were going to get, and that's what you got for the better part of 60 minutes. I mean, the Bengals come out and they score on the first offensive play of the third quarter, and you go, here goes the implosion by the Rams, and here comes the Bengals, and they're gonna take over the game. Well, they tried to, but the Rams' defensive front didn't let that happen. The coverage didn't let that happen. Third down was abysmal for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. I think they converted 3 of 14 or something like that. They couldn't get it going, and then the 7 sacks compounded, staying on the field. It was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and the Rams just needed one drive. They kept it close enough that they would need just one drive to take over the game and win the game, and that's the scenario that played out.
Hindsight, of course, always the best when it comes to analysis. I always love the post-race handicappers at the track. I told you the 3 was going to win, man. I told you this horse was a cinch. It's like, yeah, win. When they crossed the wire and he was in front by 6, what, are you kidding me? But people are questioning, at least what questions I saw, some of the things that I was reading online this morning before the show. Zach Taylor's play calling, especially in short yardage situations. I don't know. What was the guy's name? Steeple or something, the running back. But, instead of giving the ball to Morris, who seemed to be, or Mixon, who seemed to be, I keep wanting to put Joe Morris in this game.
He might have helped.
Yeah. But Mixon was successful. I think he was averaging 5 yards a crack.
He had a good
day.
day.
A couple of key short yardage spots. They gave the ball to somebody else, which seemed a little odd. People are pointing a finger at Zach Taylor and saying, there might have been a failure on the part of his coaching philosophies there. What did you think about that aspect of things?
Well, hey, if you have Joe Mixon, you're going to give it to him in a short yardage situation, right? But I think it was more about the Rams' defense. They controlled the line of scrimmage. I mean, when you have you had some guys on the Bengals' offensive line that were suspect going in anyway, and you weren't going to be able to move those guys off the spot that consistently, especially on 3rd and short when the Rams are committing an extra guy or two to that the front, to the defensive front. So it was tough to pick up a hat on a hat, man on a man, and move them to get enough crease in the running game. I think it was at some aspects on first and second down where Joe Burrow had to hold the football, and they got into third and their second and medium for they lose yards on first down, and they didn't put themselves in a position where they had any momentum. And then when they did get third and short, you could say play calling, you could say personnel, but you can also say execution. You can only call the plays and execute the plays at a better level to be able to get that yard or two or complete that pass or avoid the sack. I think all those things kind of play into, but to put it on just the play caller or maybe just the personnel and who you have running the football, that's probably what they practiced and repped all week. So it's just not like they get to the game and they go, let's take Mixon out of the game and use somebody else that we haven't thought about all week in that scenario.
Well, and what's interesting to me, John, is look, we watched Tua all year be one of the top 5 guys at getting rid of the football. The first half, they're getting rid of the ball real quick, and it worked. But at some point, you're going to have some more long-developing routes because the Bengals aren't made to go down the field like that. Like, that's not their thing. And the Rams banked on that. And in the second half, the floodgates opened to the point where they had 7 sacks, tying Super Bowl record. To me, Burrow and the Bengals did yeoman's work. The fact that they had a lead with 4 minutes left, even though their offensive line was clearly a sieve, is almost miraculous.
It was miraculous to get to that point because you thought the Rams defense would have taken over earlier in the game. The turnovers that Stafford had, you felt like Burrow might have in the first half that was going to pad the lead for the Rams. And then you'd see Cincinnati get into throw mode and maybe come back, have Jamar Chase make a big play, have T. Higgins make a big play on the outside like he did to open up the second half. I thought the game, score-wise, kind of resembled what I had in my mind. I just felt like the Rams were going to have more separation. I just thought they were the better team, had better players, had more impact players that were going to separate. Now, OBJ goes out. It kind of dents what they wanted to do because you figured they were going to double Cooper Kupp for most of the game. You'd work your other, Pro Bowl wide receiver caliber, one-on-one, third down, first down, be able to loosen up for the running game. But the Rams really never got to run the football the way they had in the playoffs, the way they did in the regular season. And I think that put more pressure on Stafford, minus one of their top receivers. That made the game more interesting and probably made the game as close as what we witnessed on Sunday.
John Congemi going Dateline Dolphins with us here on the Defo Show on Ion Channel. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubvie. It's interesting, as much as this aspect of the game is scrutinized, and Lubvie correctly pointed out, a lot of Bengals fans were screaming that they were getting hosed at the end of the ball game. I mean, it's always disheartening when you see a defense come up with, a pass deflection or something, and then another part of the field, a guy grabbed a jersey, so they go ahead on what would have set up a 4th and goal and a big decision to make, or a crucial game deciding play. They instead give the other team the ball on the 1 yard line on, what could be a questionable or suspect holding call. Although I thought those calls were legit, but how on earth? I mean, my favorite move in wrestling to start a match used to be the face rake, John Congemi.
Yeah. Absolutely. You start out with the face rake. The guy can't see, and then you start going from rope to rope. You clothesline the guy.
Boom.
Right.
And so this T. Higgins, I mean, essentially does the football version of a face rake against his defender there, Jalen Ramsey, who, of course, does create a lot of a spotlight on him no matter what, whether he's playing or not, because immediately he's pronounced, I want to cover, Chase. You're thinking, okay, good. That'll be a favorable matchup. So here he is against Higgins. Higgins throws him to the ground with a face mask. And you're asking yourself, how on earth did how many officials did they have out there? 6, 7? I mean, how did everybody miss that?
Well, it's funny because for the majority of the game, that play obviously included, it was gang warfare. I mean, there was no penalty. There wasn't a penalty to be called. I think there were 6 in the entire game, and 3 of them were at the end of the game scenario, it seemed like.
A lot unsportsmanlike, too.
Yeah, and a lot of guys going back and forth together, but they were letting those guys play. And that was the perfect example because you could see Ramsey's head get jarred back
Yeah.
And it wasn't just, on his own. It was helped by the hand of T. Higgins and the face mask. You get no call, but it works out for the Bengals and you get an easy touchdown. And then all of a sudden you don't get another penalty. You get one, I think it was unsportsmanlike conduct, but then all of a sudden it's a couple holding calls and PI in the end zone that gives the Rams extra opportunities and takes some time off the clock in that scenario, against Joe Burrow and the Bengals. You get the score by the Rams on the back shoulder throw to Cup, and you get the sack to end the game. So a lot of penalties in a short time frame. I thought for the majority of the game, guys, they let them play. The officials had their hands in their pockets. They weren't going to the flags, and they just let them play.
That's why it's weird to reverse that at the end of the ball game, because maybe you've been getting away with this stuff the entire game. Now all of a sudden it's a penalty. It's like, wait a minute, where did this come from? But a blatant missed call there that was going to be largely influential. And, and obviously put Cincinnati in a commanding position there as they come back with another 3 points. Before I even got home from watching a halftime show, John Congemi, I'm driving home, a 5-minute drive. I left, it was like 13-6. I come back, it's 20-13. You're like, what?
Yeah. What happened?
I'm thinking, well, they must have run the kickoff. You know how after you've watched enough sports, you can kind of decipher what happened, even though you didn't see it.
Right.
And I'm thinking they had to run back like the opening kick, either for a score or close enough to score on the next play. I didn't, figure that it was a bomb that was thrown where, they literally got away with murder there. I mean, even Marcia Clark would have been able to get a conviction on that one. But, and then, you're thinking, all right, and then Stafford had to get picked off. Like on the very next series, which he was. Right. And you're like, my God, could a game turn around any more favorably towards the underdog?
That's where I thought Cincinnati, if they had scored 7, I said, man, it might get dicey for the Rams. If the Rams defense can hold Cincinnati now with that sudden change after a back-breaking play on a bomb that should have been called for pass interference offensively, you get the ball with excellent field position. I thought that was probably the most pivotal part of the game. If Joe Burrow and the Bengals go in and score 7 there, man, it gets dicier for the Rams in terms of play calling. It gives the confidence to the Bengals. The defense plays maybe a little bit differently. I thought that scenario right there was huge for the Rams to only allow 3 points.
By the way, too, the face rake was particularly effective in a tag team situation when, like the Iron Sheik would have some nondescript wrestler from the Midwest in a headlock while the ref was looking the other way because action was in the ring. And then, boom, the mysterious face rake. He would whip that out at the last second, and the guy would be like blinded for a long period of time. All right, people around the country, John Congemi, and good to have you on the program as always. Brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill here on Ion Channel. But people around the country will be asking themselves, well, where does my team stand in comparison to the guys that we saw in the championship game? You would think that would be a legitimate barometer of whether or not your team was a possible contender. And I can't help but think that if you're in South Florida like we are, or you're somewhere in the country where you're a Miami Dolphin fan, with all the different changes and the pie in the sky that's coming from Mike McDaniel now, the new head coach, and there's a good vibe, and we're going to talk to each other, and there's not going to be any more acrimony, and we don't have this bitter Brian Flores out there on the field defiantly going out and winning ball games when we want them to lose. I don't know, how far away are they from being either the Bengals, who really, did a nice job, patching up a lot of holes. They didn't fix all of them, but going from where they were at and an injured Joe Burrow to being in the Super Bowl and eyelash of maybe winning it, pretty good. I don't know how the Dolphins compare in that category. It doesn't seem like they've made the same kind of smart moves from the front office. And then, of course, the Rams, I guess, they were all in, and they won't have a first-round pick until 2037. So,
yeah, exactly.
But they won a championship, and most people in sports today would say it was worth it no matter what. We could suck for the next 10 years as a consequence, but it was worth it to win the title.
Well, it is worth it. And the Rams knew exactly what they were doing. They were buying their opportunity to get to a championship and win it. And they felt like they were a couple of players away. They knew they were a quarterback away. They didn't know they were going to get a pass rusher in Von Miller, but or another wide receiver that you could say is your number one wide receiver in OBJ. So I just think that the Rams had a plan, they executed it, and they came within a whisker of losing it, but they found a way to win it. And the two players, Aaron Donald and Matthew Stafford, are game changers. Now, do the Miami Dolphins have a couple of players that are at that caliber? Probably not at those two positions anyway. But they're closer on defense than maybe the Cincinnati Bengals. I think if you put the talent on a whiteboard and you looked at the Miami Dolphins defense and you looked at Cincinnati, you'd probably have more votes for the Dolphins defense in taking that personnel in terms of, hey, we'd rather play with that defense in a Super Bowl and take our chances of winning a football game. Now on offense, obviously they have some issues. They have some issues at quarterback. They had some issues at running back that were rectified later in the year. They obviously have some problems on the offensive line when you have a Dolphins 6th or 7th round draft choice get cut and he starts in the Super Bowl for the Cincinnati Bengals and doesn't do that. It wasn't that egregious that you noticed him on every play. And you have some issues at wide receiver. So I'd say the Dolphins have a long way to go on one side of the football and not so far and pretty much on par with teams that could win a Super Bowl on the defensive side.
Wow, a couple of moves, and think about it. Had they had the foresight instead of taking Tua to take Justin Herbert, which obviously that makes Lubvie cringe that I even bring that up. 1 year, and then the next year, had they just stayed in a position to take Jamar Chase, can you imagine what kind of a dynamite combination? This would be Marino to the Marx Brothers all over again.
Well,
all wrapped up in one.
If you stay there, let alone let the quarterback decision go, because I think there was a lot of people that, hey, Tua's a winner. Tua play, he's going to come back from injury. He's going to be okay. Until you saw Justin Herbert turn into like Superman for the Chargers. I think if they stand pat at 3 and take Chase, and then they get Harris at 18 or 19, wherever they were at, who was going to be there, you've instantly taken 2 players from the draft that when you put them on your roster become the best players at that position on your football team. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to use the draft and free agency to pick guys that all of a sudden either it's an argument about that could be the best player at offensive guard or tackle or defensive end. But in this case, in the draft, they would have been the best wide receiver and the best running back on the football team. That's how you improve your football team.
Well, and that's where front office ingenuity comes in. And unfortunately, I don't know that we've seen a lavish amount of that on the part of the Miami Dolphins over the last couple of decades, which, leads, again, to question about, okay, I mean, we just had this new coach hiring, and the guy seems to be, a guy that says all the right things. I'd like to believe that most people, if they live their lives by Mike McDaniel's philosophies, they'd probably be living a pretty good life, much like you are, John Congemi, a man of principle and a man of honor and integrity and all of this. It's fantastic and seems to be innovative. I would have to agree that if he was involved in the running concepts of the San Francisco 49ers, it looked pretty good to me, man. I'm seeing tackles going straight across the line of scrimmage and coming out on the other side like they were, Jerry Kramer from the guard position, leading, Fuzzy and the boys on a sweep.
We'll take it, right?
So, no, it seemed pretty good. But, I mean, an organization can't afford to make these kind of blunders consistently. Where I'm just looking at 2 moves there, and you just brilliantly analyzed that they could have even gone with another scenario and improved themselves, and yet they did none of that, and they ended up with a quarterback that they still, as you said, have questions about, and really no running game to speak of, and of course, the same problems that plagued them all the time with the offensive line, and even though they got Waddle, excellent player. He's not Jamar Chase, as Lubvie said earlier, and doesn't appear like he's going to be, I mean, I can't knock Waddle. I mean, the guy caught more passes than anybody else this year. He was great, right?
Yeah, he was sensational for what the Dolphins asked of him. I think he was far exceeded what we thought he was going to do in his rookie season. But when you take a look at the way the Dolphins played offense, it was almost small ball compared to everywhere else where you saw more explosive plays. You saw plays going for touchdowns where Waddle would have 10 catches for 79 yards, and you're kind of going, okay, we struggled to back people off the line of scrimmage. We struggled to threaten people down the field or across the field. And I'm not so sure if it was scheme or personnel, or you just put, guys in positions not to succeed. You're trying to get your scheme to let others thrive. Well, you had injuries at wide receiver on the outside of Jalen Waddle. You didn't have consistency there. You didn't have consistency in the running game or at offensive line to the point where you felt like you were going to be able to take over a game, at a certain point, or at quarterback. Tua, for as well as he played in stretches for the Miami Dolphins last year, he went through a period where he would throw 2 or 3 passes that you'd go, wow, that came out of nowhere. It was either a pick or a poor, incompletion to extend a drive, or missing a big play potentially for points. More about the one bad ball for an interception that would kind of put a lull in the game. And it happened early in the year. And I think Tua overcame that as the season grew on, because the team got better, I think, around him. But there was a point in that, I guess it was 1-7 stretch, that you could count on one play going, where did that come from? And I think those are the things that he did improve on later in the year, but it held the team back, and it added to, didn't directly lead to, but added to them struggling on offense.
The fabled bozo play. I mean, you look for, I don't know how many you can afford a game. If it's over a hook, it's usually bad in terms of the result. And Tua was certainly guilty of that. Hey, did you have a guy during your quarterbacking days at any time that could just, you would automatically call the fly pattern, man? Because that was supposed to be Waddle. But, you love that too, where the quarterback, and the guy says, look, just throw it early. Because whether he was on the outside or the inside, you know what? Yep. I'm going to go get it. You throw it as far as you can, John Congemi. Did you have that guy, the luxury of having that kind of receiver at any time in your career?
Well, there was a guy named Rocket Ishmael that outrun a lot of arms, and mine was probably one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, you could actually just say, well, Rocket, just take off, and you had to make sure you got it on time. You had to make sure you had enough air on it and just throw it as far as you could, because he was going to track
you
it down.
You played with Rocket Ishmael? How did we
Toronto.
not talk about
this?
Oh, my God.
How did we miss it? I was thinking, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, I don't think he went to St.
Rocket
Thomas.
Ismail,
he's Notre Dame.
He's a Notre Dame guy, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But okay, so now where was he at? How come? Had he been in the NFL for a while and now was playing?
No.
Later?
He actually went to the CFL first, and then he went back to the NFL.
Yeah, because I remembered him in the NFL, so I didn't realize he went to the CFL first. Okay.
All right, and a Rocket, just by the very nature of it, what was the play call? Rocket, and that was like a fly pattern, right down Rocket, left side or right side.
Rocket had a tendency to not be at a lot of offensive meetings because he was doing things for the team. He had a lot of PR stuff. So walking late. He was he was a great guy, great teammate, but he had a lot of pressure on him because they signed him to a big contract. He was the star of the team, so he was always doing things. Yeah. So, you'd call a play in the huddle and then you'd tell Rocket kind of what to do, but you didn't have to tell him. He knew the play that the green bulb would, light up. He'd say, this is my, 9 route. This is my go pattern. So you call that play and you just make sure you threw it out with enough air and try to get around him because he was going to track it down.
I always like when a pro athlete, especially late in his career, maybe gets a chance to shrug off a label. I know. As much as people didn't like Barry Bonds' personality, great player, and, he had the label as choker in the postseason, but he had a very limited sample. And then once he was on the juice and he had a chance to, get some more at-bats, he shattered records and, people cowered in fear every time he stepped to the plate. Stafford, and I had the pleasure of meeting a guy, very humble guy, when he was coming into the league, John Congemi, and I've been telling his story, kind of leading up to the Super Bowl, because I met him after he was drafted number 1 overall on a radio row at whatever the subsequent Super Bowl was, and I remember being impressed by him. It's not like he said anything. It wasn't like, some acerbic, comment, guy that was going to have you cracking up and in stitches with stories, but just came across as a really decent person and a guy that was probably going to be successful, even though I wasn't as overwhelmed with his possibilities of being a top-notch quarterback. Where was he? Georgia he came out of?
Right.
Yeah, and, I mean, I don't know. Number one quarterback, if it's Peyton Manning or something, you're thinking, yeah, that's probably going to work out, or Andrew Luck. But I wasn't sure about this guy. And yet it was nice to see him distinguish himself and shrug off that tag of being a guy that couldn't get the job done with a great final drive. I mean, that was a thing of beauty. It was like 112 plays, 75 yards. Kupp is triple covered on every play, and he still throws a bunch of strikes in there. Really little hesitation on his part to do what he needed to, and with no running game, which was another shocker in that Super Bowl. That would you ever have imagined that the Rams would get stuffed on every run, John Congemi?
No, not the way the Rams ran the football, not only in the playoffs, but throughout the season. That was a big part of their game, being able to have some balance, or at least when you needed to run the football or you had a lead and you wanted to exhaust some minutes off the clock, the Rams are going to be able to do that. And it seemed like the Rams, for most of the playoffs, when they ran the football, they put themselves in second and short. They were winning on first down because of the run game. And I thought their offensive line, for some reason, it didn't look like there was a whole lot of space out there. In big games, especially a Super Bowl and playoffs, man, those guys get after it, especially the defensive fronts. They're faster. Everything moves so much quicker at the line of scrimmage. And it looked like that took over the game on both sides. Both defensive fronts really did a nice job of moving the offense backwards. And I think that hurt the Rams because they were relying on running the football. And it also helped Matthew Stafford, not only throughout the regular season, but in the playoffs, take some pressure off of the passing game. It didn't make him 3rd and 11, 3rd and 9, a lot of those situations that you're in. And to your point, I thought Matthew Stafford, for being in purgatory, or if not hell, for most of his career in Detroit, being around guys that all of a sudden now it's like you have freedom. You've got a innovative play caller. You're on a team with a number one defense. You've got the best player on the defense in terms of getting after the passer and stopping the run, and Aaron Donald. You add Von Miller to that, and you've got weapons by yourself on the offensive side. I mean, that's a team that's loaded. And I don't know if they're going to be able to keep everybody, but Matthew Stafford sure took advantage of his opportunity. He's always had a strong arm. He's always been a tough guy. He seems like he's always been able to hang in the pocket and make plays, but it really came full circle for him when he got his opportunity to be on a better team. And I think Sean McVay and that organization knew they were a quarterback away. They just didn't know they were getting A-plus players along with their quarterback to help them to a world championship.
Came through a couple of times there in the clutch. Of course, that final drive there to win the Super Bowl. And then with those two pass plays that he had against Tampa Bay in I guess would have been the semifinal round or quarterfinals. But, with little time left on the clock, and he throws a couple of strikes there. Cooper Kupp, pretty amazing. This guy, very humble, Cooper Kupp, and isn't the type to be, doing a lot of self-aggrandizing gestures and things of that nature. But what a Fred Biletnikoff tough SOB this guy is. And he wins the Super Bowl MVP to the delight of many who took a shot. And I think we're getting $750 to 1, plus $750 on that. So $100 got you $750 if you had Kupp as the game MVP, which, that final drive was Chuck Mercine-like, the way that he dominated every positive play. It was incredible, and they had nowhere else to go. And
they moved him around everywhere you could possibly put him because, you have injury at wide receiver. He can play inside. He can play outside. That winning play is probably designed for Odell Beckham.
Yes.
On a fade route, and they move him to the outside, and he's got the wherewithal and the smarts and the technique and to be able to catch the football in a tight, situation. He did everything perfectly and left some room for that back shoulder throw, and it was plenty of room for Stafford to fit it in.
Or that 4th and 1 on the Jets sweep when he hadn't touched the ball on a run the entire game. They're like, we're giving it to him. There's no way Kupp's not getting one. He got 6 on a jet sweep on 4th and 1. It was like the dude, him and Aaron Donald
through 2 defenders. On, he had to run that perfectly.
Yes.
Because if he's undisciplined and he cuts it up too soon or he strings it out too far, that's a loss. That's a tackle for a loss, and the ball's going the other way. And the game's probably done.
Clever ball handling in there, John Congemi, by Matthew Stafford on that particular play. I saw a young John Congemi handing off to some monster running back at St. Thomas on that one. I mean, and it was well disguised. And you're right. He makes a brilliant cut.
Yep.
Upfield at precisely the right moment, slicing between the two guys who appeared to have him collared.
Yep.
You know, and as you said, there was going to be tagged for a loss, and the whole game swings in a different direction then, because you would have to think Cincinnati at that stage finds a way to ultimately prevail.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's right.
And that was right around a 30-yard line or something.
Yeah,
I mean, wasn't that pretty deep in their own?
I mean,
it was Andy Reid City. You're done if you don't make it.
Yes.
Yeah, so, I had a couple cocktails by that time. And I saw the logo on the field.
Yeah, it was
I turned to my
midfield-ish.
son. I said, "Well, at least they're at the 50-yard line." He goes, "Dad, what game are you watching? They're on their own 30-yard line."
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, you're right."
So gutsy call there and a gutsy play call. I mean, people like to get on McVay for getting too cute, but wow, I mean, and well executed there. And I was happy for Stafford because, as I said, I was impressed with him. One time I met him, he came around. He was very humble on his radio row, had no entourage, no publicity person around him. He just sat down at the table and said, you're with whatever station I was at the time. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm here. And it was very cool. So it was nice to see. And you always hate that when a guy gets labeled as a loser in the postseason. And, and he hadn't won a postseason game, correct? I think he never won
until this playoffs, never.
Playoff game with Detroit, even though they had some good teams while he was there. It wasn't a total atrocity. He had some offensive firepower with him at different times and looked like they were going to go somewhere, but they never did. So nice to see him distinguish himself in that fashion.
Coming up next, we talk more with John Congemi, not only about the big game, the Miami Dolphins then, now, in the future, but also ZachThomas getting hosed out of the Hall of Fame. We talk to a guy who is a Phinsider himself, does a lot of work with Miami Dolphins, CBS 4 Down in South Florida. John Congemi gives his take on ZachThomas' career and just how badly he got screwed and why we all are frustrated that ZachThomas is still not an NFL Hall of Famer. Coming up next, the Defo Show with Lubvie right here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10. And Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. You know, since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
Welcome back to the Defo Show with Lubvie right here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We're continuing our conversation with the one and only John Congemi, Phinsider himself. Again, thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. John worked with the Dolphins very closely for years. So we talked about ZachThomas' getting jobbed out of making the Hall of Fame right here again. Defo, myself, and John Congemi on the Defo Show with Lubvie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right. The Hall of Fame inductees were decided. Of course, I'm sure, like many people in the community, you've had experiences with ZachThomas. Wonderful person, a great guy. I mean, you talk about looking at a guy whose stature didn't imply that he was going to be a standout middle linebacker in the NFL for a long period of time, consistently leading his team and being among the league leaders in tackles. Sideline to sideline. He can actually do it all. He was effective on blitzes. He'll get to the quarterback. he'd pick off a pass every now and then, and you say, "Run, Zach, run!" And he looked like Fred Flintstone out there on the field, and yet somehow got it done. Not blinding speed, didn't have like an overwhelming athletic look, but nonetheless, what was a physical specimen, and still is to this day. But A, what do you think about the fact that he wasn't a Hall of Fame member coming in with the new class? And B, do you buy our theory that when a guy's retired for 5 years, there should be one vote and one vote only, whether they're in the Hall of Fame or not, and not subject these guys to like an annual attrition where their chances are lessened as more people are eligible? And obviously interest in them fades a little bit. In my opinion, you're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. You should be able to decide it right away. What do you think about any of that?
Well, in terms of ZachThomas, he is a Hall of Famer right away. I mean, all you have to do is listen to the people that played with him and played against him. And Zach's argument is kind of settled. You can talk to coaches, you can talk to former players, you can talk to opponents, and they would point to ZachThomas being a Hall of Famer, whether that's 5 years after he played, 10 years after he played, immediately after he played. And the attributes that throw it over the top are what you talked about. Zach has been just a quality person, ever since the day you met him. He's a gentleman. He's a great guy. He's the ultimate hard worker. He's the overachiever. And he turned that overachievement, in my opinion, into a Hall of Fame career just by watching him play and the things that he did on the field. He didn't have to be the talker. He didn't have to be a guy that was so boisterous after he made a play. All you had to do was watch and go, who's 54? 54 made another play, or it's another interception, or it's another tackle for loss, or it's another fourth or third down stop, or it's another guy pointing out where the play is going to go before the ball snapped, because he was that adept to his play study and knowing what opposing offenses wanted to do in certain situations. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't other guys that are as deserving or even maybe more deserving than ZachThomas, but there's no way that you can go and put a Hall of Fame together, watch a guy play for his career, wait 5 years and go, that guy's not a Hall of Famer. I don't know. I just think they're missing the boat on this one.
Should be able to know. We've seen a couple of guys, actually. We watched them annually tortured and tormented by the idea that they weren't getting accepted into the Hall of Fame or getting enough votes, and their time was running out. We saw it with Jerry Kramer. We saw it with also Kuchenberg of the Miami Dolphins. I mean, they just tortured this poor man to his grave, practically, about getting into the Hall of Fame. So I don't know. The guy, he's no more of a Hall of Famer next year than he would have been this year, in my opinion. No. And that's why I think they ought to just have a decisive vote. And if they let more people in, that's fine. I mean, I don't care if they have a class of 30 going in. I mean, it's just, if a guy's a Hall of Famer and has Hall of Fame stature, he should. People always scream about somebody that's in there, or with a receiver. It was always Lynn Swann is in there. And why not Mark Duper, who had far more statistical accomplishment and maybe overall more impact on, Dolphin, chances than Swan did with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Sam Mills was the guy Lubvie was screaming about on this one. And then everybody brings up Urlacher in the ZachThomas argument.
Well, I mean, you can have an argument with both of those guys that you mentioned, and you can have, positional arguments. Why is another wide receiver? Why is another defensive end? Or why is another offensive lineman? I go back to, I think, your original statement, Defo, about you should know right away whether this guy is a Hall of Famer or he's not a Hall of Famer, or he's right on the borderline. There's guys that kind of go in and out because of, in my opinion, because of who else he's listed with, or he's compiled with for that particular year. So in Zach's instance, 15 years ago or 10 years ago when he retired, he might have had a better chance in 2013 than 2015 because the class, and some might say, well, it's a little bit weaker, or maybe it wasn't just over the top guys that were first ballot Hall of Famers. Well, maybe ZachThomas isn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he is a Hall of Famer by his numbers, by his play. And I think it gets diluted because every year you're going to have more people that are added to the list. And to your point, how many do you pick? How many can you pick to fit in that year? And I think Zach gets kind of that torment and that torture and that, I guess it's slant against him because, you have a dynamic wide receiver that, had huge numbers, or now it's a return guy that you have to get a specialist in this year, or you have to get another offensive lineman, or quarterbacks come up, in succession because they all retired at the same time. It's going to be tougher and tougher as the years go on, but it doesn't take away from the fact that Zach is a Hall of Famer, and he should be in the Hall of Fame.
That'll do it for another edition of the Defo Show with Lubvie right here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Big thank you to John Congemi for joining us today on Dateline Dolphins. As always, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. Great place to take in all your football action. And now that football is over, just kick back and relax. No better place in the Keys, and it's like the northernmost parts. You don't have to drive all the way to Key West. Nope. Just check out Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. Sit back, relax, great food, great drink, great fun, and they bring us John Congemi each and every week. This week, talk to us about Super Bowl 56 as the Rams are now champions once again. Also, ZachThomas getting screwed out of the NFL Hall of Fame, and the Dolphins now and into the future. We'll talk a lot more about that as we get closer to the draft and next season. Thank you again for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. You can check us out each and every morning, as I like to say, on the ION channel. Just search Google The Defo Show, DEFO. 7 to 9 each and every morning. Also, we do exclusive content on the Believe Podcast Network. Search Believe.com, search After Hours, and each and every day right here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, the Defo Show with Lubvie. Check you out tomorrow.
Play the ponies in style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752. Why go up against insurance companies alone when you can have Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa on your side?